Mussolini, the socialist who coined the term fascism, rose to power on a populist mandate. He violently crushed opposition and projected an image of himself as a powerful, indispensable leader. This is the story of how Mussolini seized power in Italy and turned it into a fascist state. Italy by the 1900s was a newly formed nation at the time. The unification of Italy, also known as the Risorgimento in 1861, saw the annexation of various city-states and outlying kingdoms. The unification process was precipitated by the revolutions of 1848 and reached completion in 1870 after the capture of Rome and its designation as the capital of the Kingdom of Italy. Mussolini is said to have invented fascism. What is fascism? Fascism is a far-right, authoritarian, and ultranationalist political ideology and movement that is characterized by a dictatorial leader, centralized autocracy, and is generally militaristic. Economically, fascists generally believe autarky, which is a national economic self-sufficiency. Fascists also believe that a one-party state is a strong leadership. They may hold a belief in a natural social hierarchy for the perceived good of the nation or race. The Italian term fascismo is derived from fascia, meaning bundle of sticks. This was the name given to political organizations in Italy known as fasce. The Fasces of Revolutionary Action were founded in Italy in 1915. In 1919, Mussolini founded the Italian Fasces of Combat in Milan, which became the National Fascist Party 2 years later. But Benito was not always an extreme right-winger. He originally was a socialist and was editor of socialist newspaper called Avanti. At the start of the First World War, it became apparent that his viewpoints were divergent from mainstream and extreme socialism because he was pro-nationalistic and pro-imperialist. This was at a time where the socialist viewpoint was that going to war would pit the poor man versus the poor man and weaken the socialist cause internationally. However, Britain and France saw Benito as a useful pawn in helping to get Italians conscripted, thus as a result they gave him a wage. By the cessation of the First World War, many Italians were not pleased with the German surrender treaty. This is because they believed it did not contain things that the Italians had been promised in a victory. Mussolini might have left the Socialist Party behind after the war, but many Italians embraced socialism because establishment politicians were ineffective in solving post-war problems. The socialists offered Italians a multitude of simple answers to complex questions, and also due to the economic and social struggles at the beginning of the 20th century, socialist ideas were widely accepted by the Italian working class. Italian socialism spread in the right conditions for a struggling and an impoverished Italian people to willingly engage with, understand, and accept the core spirit of socialism. This is because the First World War had changed the political and religious climate to a large extent. The socialists made huge electoral gains, taking over local governments. Although the fascists hated socialists who they viewed as weak, this does not mean that Benito could not persuade them to join his cause. The decision of some socialists to join Benito Mussolini, especially in the years leading up to and following his rise to power, is a complex and multifaceted issue. There were several factors influencing this shift. Firstly, the disillusionment with traditional socialist parties and wider international socialism. The international movement did not value traditional nationalism, whereas the fascists did, especially the appeal of revolutionary nationalism. Fascism was also more diverse and catered for both the poor man and the industrialist. It also promoted strong leadership and promises of order, stability, and national rejuvenation. Many socialists in Italy, particularly those who were moderate or more pragmatic, feared the rise of communism. Benito persuaded many of these individuals to join his party and cabinet, thusly neutralizing them as a threat. The 1921 Pact of Pacification was a truce of sort between fascists and socialists. It promised the socialist key issues and debates on things that the black shirts were normally against. They also promoted the Verona Manifesto, which fascism and Benito promoted this process of economic socialization, which is a pro-middle-class, industrialist view of socialism through a fascist lens. The 1922 Verona Manifesto was a key document, solidifying fascist ideology in Italy, laying the groundwork for Mussolini's policies. It reinforced the idea of totalitarian control over all aspects of Italian life, political, social, and economic policy, and sense of socialist nationalism, or shall I say right-wing interpretation of what that looks like. In fact, much of the fascist ideology derives from communist collectivism. When the manifesto discusses socialism in the economic sense, it refers to a system where the state plays a central role in managing the economy and rights of workers, but without abolishing private property or capitalism altogether. In March 1919, Mussolini formed the Fascist Party, galvanizing the support of many unemployed war veterans. He organized them into armed squads known as Black Shirts. In 1921, the Fascist Party was invited to join a right-wing coalition government. By October 1922, Italy seemed to be slipping into political chaos. 20,000 Black Shirts marched from Rome, stopping only 20 miles from Rome, and only after King Victor Emmanuel invited Mussolini to form a government, Mussolini named himself Il Duce. By By 1925, Mussolini gradually dismantled the institutions of democratic government, instead making either the party himself or his inner order head of that governance. Now in power as a dictator, Mussolini could mix legal state repression with illegal squad violence. The squads were still important, but Mussolini could also then rely on the police to go after enemies, whatever was most politic. In 1924, the main socialist leader lampooned Benito over the suppressing of freedoms and rights. As a result, he was assassinated. This prompted opposition deputies to boycott the parliament. From this point on, he fostered a cult of personality, projecting himself as an omnipotent and indispensable leader. His government expelled all opposition, including socialist members, and arrested all communist members of parliament. He abolished local elections and reinstated the death penalty for political crimes. He also wanted to make Italy a military superpower in intricular alliance with Nazi Germany and imperialist Japan. The legacy of the Mussolini movement helped to inspire other movements in other countries like Germany and Spain. With that concluded, Benito Mussolini ascension to a most all-powerful dictator was complete.